Hello everyone and welcome back to the comments section. This is where we do a deep dive in everything that you guys are talking about, and we're going to have the specific focus again on Throne and Liberty, because while we've seen some news and some more videos will be rolling out here on the channel for you shortly, there's still also a lot of speculation, and so I think it's important to form these in that discussion, or what people call that second monitor content, something you can get a cup of coffee, you can go about your day doing your errands and hopefully enjoy as a kind of a mini podcast, because these can kind of tend to run long. But if you're curious about what we're talking about, check the chapters in the YouTube playhead, and that will help you get to any specific section that hopefully interests you the most. And obviously be sure to sound off in the comments yourself. That way we can talk about that, your viewpoints, because I think that's the best part of gaming, is when we get to sit down and we get to talk about what is going on. But as a TLDR, to sum up what this video is going to kind of hit on, some of you guys are pissed, right? Throne of Liberty shown to be a free-to-play MMORPG, Korean-based, lots of bias there, like, and not necessarily without merit, right? Like, we've seen the Korean MMO multiple times, so we see a lot of that theme popping up coming into play, but we'll talk about it. We also got some release date information and some news, kind of in a way, to kind of talk about. So we'll talk about that. And some of y'all are just, well, let's just say a little extra. And we'll talk about that as well. So hopefully you guys enjoy the video. Welcome in, everyone. My name is Brian. If you happen to be new around here, if you're a returning subscriber, you're sexy and you know it. And that's what you get for subscribing, by the way. Free compliments at the start of these videos. Be sure to like that like button, I guess, when you get around to it. YouTube reminds me I do a terrible job at these call to actions, but I'm not going to waste your time. Let's get into the comments. First and foremost, GTR Nemo says, I hope that they get TNL out before the second half, or I'll be happy if it comes out in July or August. Rooster 101 says, everything that I've read from articles about the game says Throne of Liberty's release date is in the second half of 2023. With 3 months left in the first half, I highly doubt that we'll see this by June. Lumina says, according to the website, Throne of Liberty is releasing first half of 2023 and not second half of 2023. They haven't changed it as of yet. It is still first half of 2023. And according to some Korean investment articles, they state that as the launch of a schedule for Throne of Liberty has been delayed from June to third quarter 2023, we are reallocating our earnings estimates by about 1 quarter to reduce the overall earnings forecast for 2023. Throne of Liberty remains the most anticipated PC title by the firm in a long time. So release dates information wise, I have for a while felt, especially in terms of news and scheduling and marketing, that, as my voice slightly fails me, I'm going to take a little coffee break here. As the news and marketing has been slightly delayed, maybe, it just feels like the last part of the first half, right? The May and June, which is really right around the corner, is just so freaking packed. And when it comes down to it, we see, like last year, like if we just go back 1 year, like everybody just put everything like in February and March, and Elden Ring really did dominate, but by the time June, July, August rolled around, it was just, there wasn't even news to talk about. There wasn't really anything to talk about. We were just like, well, I guess we'll see what happens. And then things continue to kind of miss the fall window and push into the spring. And I was worried 2023 would be a repeat of 2022. Right now, it's not shaping up to be that way at all, which is, I think, a great thing. This is good news here in the long run. So all that being said, them not putting it out in first half of 2023, I know there's people who have been following it since its lineage days and that have felt like it's already been delayed. And it's not like, a delay ever feels good, especially when you're excited for it. But I think this is probably for the best. Now, third quarter 2023, the fact that the article says June 2023 is like June just makes the most obvious sense. Third quarter 2023 is going to be July, August, September. And I think there's a good window of time. I think there's going to be a great window of time there. And people speculate any kind of game could, kind of do this. I look at it as a content offering from Amazon first and foremost. You have the New World expansion sometime in the fall. You have, there's season 1 that just dropped now. You also have Blue Protocol, Lost Ark. At some point, you don't want to cannibalize yourself. At some point, you don't want to spread yourself too thin if you do not have to. If you are in charge, in a way, of when these things happen, and when the other things are going to happen, and things are going to get delayed, and no situation is perfect. One of the things that irks me, not like in a horrible and negative way, but just like every time I see it, I go, you kind of just get one of those groans, like, all right, like, okay, like one of those kind of irks, is when like the anticipation that the developers are, flawless, like delays are this be all end all. And like there's such this like, oh, how could this ever happen? It's like, I mean, you go to your job, right? Like you go to work just like they go to work, and things happen and things can and do go wrong. Let's not beat around the bush. They can and do go wrong. So while we don't have a specific window, I guess we have a window, but while we don't have a specific date to schedule for, just note that I think we'll start to see some marketing. We'll start to talk about, there'll be more discussions around beta. And while I've heard things and maybe have been told things, and I'm sorry to be vague about it, I'm not ready to commit to the information just yet. Just note that there are some things on the way that I think you guys will be pretty excited about. There's a couple of conversations, just as a heads up, like I have been really lucky. I've got a lot of like really cool people that I know in the industry, and so there's lots of talk and things like that. So I'll let you know when I'm officially confirming something for you guys. Now, as we move on, there's some definitely interesting takes here, and this is, I think, one of the most interesting ones. Dave Danver writes, "Nobody releases games in the summer. Remember that. If the game doesn't come out before the beginning of May, then it will come out in September. Mark my words, virgin. I'm experienced." I had to take the moment to reply, I got 6 kids, dude. And also, when is virgin ever, like, why is that an insult to anybody? We could have a deeper conversation if you guys are interested in it. If you guys are like, well, like I'm trying to figure out how to be the best version of myself. Like maybe that's where we have a deeper dive conversation. But I would not be surprised if the game comes out in September. I think September is a perfect time to release a game. While personally, I think July and August, this case, if the game's ready, if it's ready, big if it's ready to rock and roll, like once you're out of June, there's going to be an opportunity to pick up a lot of attention because you also have a lot of people out of school for the summer. And being that this is a free-to-play MMORPG, which we'll talk more about here in a second, means you get to pick up a wide range of gamers who can then obviously, like, this boosts it in terms of the zeitgeist, in terms of the conversation. But I just thought this was really and ridiculously funny. That like, first and foremost, nobody releases games in summer. Like, no, like that is completely false. I love the internet. The internet is a place where you get to say something, and as long as you put like the word facts in front of it, as long as you're like, like as long as you try and speak with like a little bit of gusto, then it becomes the truth, right? Like I do not need evidence. I do not need evidence to give you guys details. Like I could literally be like, and then it's like, oh, okay, we're just gonna accept that. Like, to sum that up, to put that as an example of probably hopefully an absurd example would be like me saying, facts, people who eat peanut butter are weird. It's like some ridiculousness or whatever. And everybody's like, well, I mean, the guy on the internet, put in big capital letters the word facts and said it with authority. I love the internet, man. It is the only place where, like, when you step off the internet and go into the real world, like, as long as you don't take internet, like, logic into the real world, you're fine. But as soon as you do, you start getting those people looking at you like you're crazy. Facts, baby. That's how it works. But anyway, I just think it's funny. For me, especially because it's not like I hide the fact that I have kids and, that I'm a software engineer and, like, pretty straightforward and, like, I think maybe, I'm an overshare to a degree. We'll see. When it comes down to it, I think it's always funny because it's like I can tell easily when somebody's new to the channel or when they're just trying to, like, just drop something in, like, and dip out. So anyway, Dave, interesting take. Absolutely not actually backed up by facts. Lots of things have released over the summer, and that is an actual fact as opposed to your fiction there. Now, so Davey Moon writes, I've been playing MMOs since 2005 with Guild Wars, and I've experienced just about every kind of monetization there is. Free-to-play definitely has merits and will have no barrier to entry for people who just want to try the game. But I can't think of a single one where the design decisions weren't impacted by the idea of getting you to pay for convenience, or worse, power, making the game objectively worse in the process. Submodel is tried and true, but let's be honest, it puts people off. So buy to play seems to be the best way forward, with a really extensive free option, a la Guild Wars 2 and Final Fantasy 14, down the line when you want to invite new players in, ideally around the first expansion. On top of that, I'd be pretty happy with the cosmetic cash shop. It's just the norm these days, and as long as you don't feel like you have to put money into the game to get a normal experience, I can live with it. Interestingly, the one we seem to see the least often is no box price, but a monthly sub. I wonder why that is. Now, Vajukas, sorry for butchering any names here, by the way. Not good if this game will be a free-to-play cheaters, bots, spammers, sellers, plus pay-to-win, so dead game in 6 to 12 months. Cypherus 84X says, free-to-play and action combat, two things that I don't want out of a Korean MMO. We got some replies here. Adaman says, two things I want in every single MMO. And Gunson says, it's tab targeting. The info are wrong. I love the internet. GTR Nemo says, I don't care if it will be free to play. I'm still going to play it regardless. Ufik says, free to play is a really good to gather in a lot of players, but the bot problem is going to be a patient killer, and I'm not one MMO has survived it. It's a shame that they went with free to play, but I can understand it. And Jason says, the only thing that concerns me in free to play games is the psychology used to get players to spend money, especially if it's loot box based. And so with this, we got a lot of free to play discussion here. And when it comes down to it, there's an underlying of something else that's kind of going on behind the scenes. A lot of people feel it. And probably when I say it, you might be like, oh my gosh, it finally makes sense. But I think one of the mistakes that a lot of people make is they don't look at the entire industry. And you're like, what? What are you talking about, Brian? A lot of people take the free-to-play market and look at this and apply it only within the MMO space, as opposed to looking at the entire industry and seeing where free-to-play is not just thriving, but thriving so in a very fair way to players. Traditionally, this is kind of coming, you end up having these kind of generational gaps, and that's just natural part of life. Traditionally, when you look at what's going on right now, free-to-play was a sign of failure. Free-to-play was a sign of trying to get your money back or try to salvage some form of that money that you've invested in the game because you were originally trying to launch as a subscription-based game, because that's what the model was. But I think we clearly saw, and a lot of games got, unfortunately, caught up in this. But when you look at the new model is free-to-play, but it's not, in a way. You have the Battle Pass-driven model, which has its strengths and weaknesses. It has its own challenges that, within the MMO space, that we need to monetarily let win. If you think of the mantra, let the market decide, with the games as a service, having any walls that get somebody in and playing the game, the rule is now, if the game is good, and I think a lot of developers are actually really understanding that. If you focus in on a really good game first and foremost, having it with that free to play helps alleviate a lot of the problems that people like me create. Let's throw myself under the bus. Let's talk about the real things going on. When you look at this, when Throne and Liberty is coming out, no matter what, we're going to see so many hot takes online. There's going to be so much information online. What is true? What is real? who do you trust? Well, I personally believe the best reviewer is you, the individual who plays the game and says what they like and don't like about it. I love the discussion. I always like to hear what other people like and don't like and compare it to my own. I think that's a cool thing that we actually have the ability to do at a global scale. But we also have and seen the negative impacts, the campaigns against games and movements. Like, there is a demand for community. And you see this, and it's outside of gaming too. But being a part of this, something, right? And this is on games that are hyped. This is on the anti-hype campaigns. And it goes every which way. And when we look at one of the things that I think was just genius, Apex Legends launched and it was out. There wasn't time to, oh, this is another battle royale. There wasn't time to set fear and concern or a community behind, like, being against an idea. It was just there, and you go and play it, and people were like, this is great. And then guess what? A games as a service is an invitation for a game that evolves. And because of that invitation for this game that evolves, I always kind of say, like, if you're in it because you think nothing's going to change, you're going to be in for a world of hurt. Because it's all about that change. It's about that relationship. And the ones that survive, it's not really, obviously there's a monetary piece for sure, but the ones that survive and really start to thrive are ones that do a couple of things right. And first and foremost, you have to have a hook. If you're just a straight up carbon copy of something else that exists out there with a different paint of skin, chances are people are just going to like, I touched it and it's exactly like this. They're just going to go back to the thing that they have more time, money, and already investment. And you have a sunk cost mindset that it is applying. So you have to be different, or at least different enough to warrant a different player experience. And this is one of the things I've said about New World for a long time. It's definitely different, which gives it some disadvantages. People who are coming from World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy 14, like, there's going to, like, if you're coming from Final Fantasy 11 or any of the older school MMOs, RuneScape, like, New World is RuneScape for adults, basically. If you're coming from that environment, you're going to feel really right at home. It's a challenging game too. It's not face roll easy like we've seen a lot of, like, MMOs become, but that but in and of itself, the point I'm trying to make is that it's different enough that it's good and bad in that regard. So if you're expecting the thing you've come to be comfortable in, it's going to have a little bit of a system shock. So it's got to be different. It's got to put out content, and it's got to do so regularly. Like, content is king. If you do not put out content, people are just going to go away. Putting out content is a way of always kind of reminding people that you're doing stuff, and you got to communicate, and it means listen, discuss, talk. And that's, like, really important. So content, communication, and being consistent in those things will help continue to invite players back. Doesn't mean, that's one of the problems with MMOs right now, is that everybody expects another WoW moment. And Fortnite is that, and maybe the MMO genre again will have that. And I think that will come with technology. But I think right now it's about actually growing the genre. And one way you grow the genre is you get out of people's way. That doesn't mean that when you get them in, that if you are like brutal, like if it's just awful and bad monetization, you kind of have those quick grabs. But the amount of investment that they make in these, I think we're seeing that less and less and less. I'm with Davey. I'm with the people, like, buy to play feels like the right amount, but the subscription model I just don't see as a sustainable model in terms of really offering like a volume of players. And I think that's why we've seen this shift here. And with things like the Battle Pass, that becomes the optional subscription, that becomes the optional touch point for monetization, and it's less, pay to win. It's less, it's less of these things that are unfair. But we're going to talk more about that, because as we get into our next section of comments, free to play means pay to win. This is from Kyle, especially with companies involved. Sad. And then Dogma says free to play equals pay to win. Oh, I guess it must be true. But Alderman writes, all business models lead you to pay the same fixed amounts of money the devs need to keep the game up. You are forced to pay in a sub fee. You are free to pay in free to play. but you call it pay to win. If the game is good enough, I have no problems spending money on a sub. If the game is good, I have no money, good, I have no problem paying to win. You don't need to pay any more after you win. In sub fee games, you pay more. Here's what's interesting. This is just kind of a psychological thing in this regards, because when it comes down to it, especially when the company's involved, from Kyle, like every game has, as there's a company involved. It's like even in indies, like those are companies. You would do that so that at least you can protect yourself in your home. You don't want anybody coming and suing you, things like that. But that gets more into the legal side of things, which is always kind of an interesting kind of world that we live in. But in this case, it's interesting. Like if you have a problem with the game, like people will label things, and people will label any game like that, it's pay to win, as a way of trying to hurt the game, as a way, like it's all about like almost an information war. Now, the flip side of that, like statement, the exact same, same coin, but it's like, if the game is predatory, like people should know. So telling people how it really isn't a bad thing. But the question is who do you trust? And free to play means you gotta check it out. You get to see how it is without having to risk and be concerned and have that actually level of stress. Because no matter what, even if it was buy to play, it's pay to win. Yeah, if it's this game, it's pay to win. Gamers have over brutalized that point and that naming convention, that it means nothing. And what it was meant to do, to ideally protect people's wallets, now in and of itself is just used every which way. So what really is pay to win? Is the game now, like, we'd have to have it's true pay to win, guys, watch out. But if nothing else, people will profit off of you with that label, content creators and the like. It is, the videos and the titles, they write themselves. I will have videos out. Is this pay to win? I'll probably put them into shorts, so that way I'm not wasting anybody's time. But that way, as people ask the question, I'll be able to give them the answer and let them go on their way. And hopefully that helps, in that regards. Because that is a question that people have, and that's a label that people apply. But the truth ends up being much more something deeper. And then with the fact that this is a PvP game, like the way that people will label that is one way or the other. It'll be interesting to see if it truly is pay to win, but it is to the point where I don't see free to play automatically equaling pay to win in today's society. It's going to vary, but we'll have to wait and see. Obviously, I'm very excited to find out more information. And I think, again, the Battle Pass is something that actually does help prevent that. But, everybody's allowed their opinion. And, as my dad says, opinions are like souls. Everybody's got one and they all stink. So even here, let's, we'll just keep also making sure that I'm included in that conversation, because I'm just a dude with a mic who loves video games and has a lot of sex. All right. All right. Final grouping of comments here. We got Robin Hades here. Says, did you say free to play? That's awesome news. That's great. That's great to read. I'll be playing this for sure now. Maybe even buy some stuff to support the cool MMO. Thanks for the update. I hope they add controller support. Support, fingers crossed. And partly because of your hype videos, I'm starting to really enjoy New World. It's fun with the controller, and it seems to run smoother that way. New World runs great on the controller, but they need that native support. Thankfully, that is coming. The team that was behind the gear set storage is the team working on controller support. Cannot wait to see what that's like and how that plays in this game. It will be a huge help. Huge. I wish I need to learn how to do a Trump impression. I'm a stand-up comedian, and I'm nervous when I get time to do impressions. So we'll see if I can get that done. But in terms of that, yes, like this game, Throne of Liberty supports controllers on console as well. So like out the gate, Throne of Liberty is launching strong. Out the gate, it's going to be on consoles. Out the gate, we're talking about, maybe the summer. Like these are actually really big strengths. It has the opportunity to really get content out to people. And honestly, when it comes down to it, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out in the long run. Angry Juice follows this up, says, I'm excited for this. I'm going to sign up for it immediately. I'm glad that it's free to play, though. Though God gives this me some Skyrim vibes. And so this summer, like, think about it, like Xbox, PlayStation, PC. I'm assuming crossplay with all that, console support, controller support right out the gate. Play with your friends. Y'all having fun. And the second that you're not, then you can kind of like, all right, that was cool. Oh, there's new content. There's new things to check out. What's all changed? Like, when you start to think about that, here's the theory that I run. I wonder if we could actually see a point where they get to go and say, hey, it's not just about launch. It's about what happens 1 month after launch and the second month after launch and the third month. I think for the first 6 months of a game's release, if you can deliver content every month, new content, bug fixes, updates, balances, all that stuff, every month, boom, 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 it really does build a lot of excitement. And then essentially you can have the real conversation. An update every month just isn't sustainable over the grand scheme of things. But you could be like, you know what, every 3 months, as a part of our season, as a part of this, like, it just seems to make sense. I'm glad I'm helping people enjoy New World as well. I think New World is a great game. It really blows me away, but it's different. And that's one of the things that is going to be a constant ebb and flow for the game itself. But New World is also showcasing the rules of making these games and what they are needed. They need content, they need updates, they need communication. If you're not hearing from the devs, if no one's talking about the game, that's the worst sign of it. Positive or negative, that just is the worst sign of it. So the best thing you can keep doing is keep showing up. Keep punching the ticket. Keep, doing your absolute best that you can. And then be different enough so that it's not like, well, this is just this other thing in a different, with a different color skin, a different dye set. Because then essentially you'll stick where you put the most investment. There is a sunk cost, at play. And sometimes that could be like, fake, because at some point you might be willing to walk away. But if the game keeps putting out update and you've been away from it from a long time, you'll start to physically just remember the good times and you'll forget the bad. And that's a part of being human as well. It's a wild thing about being human. And I think it's a good thing, because if you couldn't forget the bad, life gets pretty freaking hard. And thank goodness we got video games to also help out when those times are tough. All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up. Thanks so much for joining me for this comment section. Hopefully you enjoyed. Hopefully you got something good out of the video. Like, sub, share, comment below. Comment on the other videos as well. That's a great way to do it. Check out the other content. There's so much more going on. Also, we have the links to the podcast. I take these. I do some more breakout conversations. Sometimes I bring on guests. You can subscribe to the podcast in MP3, wherever podcasts are enjoyed. We're everywhere on that front. But yeah, that's going to be it for this video. Thank you so much. Hopefully you enjoyed. Hopefully I'll see you next time. But until then, take care.